Earlier this year, I was dragged into court by my ex-landlord because I had put in a complaint in small claims because he had not, or his company had not, returned my security deposit. And unfortunately, on my calendar, I put the wrong time for it because sometimes when I do arithmetic, my arith doesn't matic. So I was supposed to be there at 10. I ended up arriving at, or sorry, was it no 1? But I arrived at like 2:30 because I had put down that I was supposed to be there at 3. And my son was with me because he was a witness. And so we were too late because court was already done for the day, and the defendant and his lawyer, because he can afford a lawyer because he's a millionaire, had gone home. And they filed a motion against me saying that I had filed a frivolous lawsuit. And in most states, there are what are called anti-SLAPP lawsuits, which are to prevent, laws, not lawsuits. There are these anti-SLAPP laws, which are meant to prevent frivolous lawsuits from being filed. Now, because I was late, they claimed that I was being frivolous and willfully did so. The truth of the matter is I did not. I put the name of the owner of the company on there, not really understanding that an LLC is not owned by the owner. Or rather, they are not personally liable. Also, I put it on there because when I worked for him, he told me he was the owner. But the judge, actually, the day before, I put in a motion requesting a continuance because my the company that was currently then and currently helping me with mental health issues had failed to refill my prescription for my antidepressant, and so I was a hot mess, as they say. I was really struggling to function. I was very suicidal, and I really was not in a mental state to handle that court appearance. Unfortunately, either the judge didn't see it or chose to ignore it. I don't know. So I ended up showing up the next day, and I did mention it. The judge did not make any comment on the continuance request. And I explained that I was struggling with depression and anxiety, and I was considering putting myself in the psych ward. Fortunately, I was able to get my medicine, and after a period of weeks, the medicine started helping me because it's very slow to act on me. But that didn't help at the time. I had a lot of things going on, and I was really struggling. And so I functioned as best as I could within that. And from what I recall, the lawyer did a pathetic job of presenting that I had actually willfully done anything wrong or frivolously. And so I did demonstrate that the defendant, my former landlord, had been, I said he had committed perjury, and the judge didn't like that. But I demonstrated that some of the things that he said by questioning him myself, because I couldn't afford a lawyer. Lawyers want $300 some an hour, and apparently lawyers think that's a reasonable rate. I don't think it's a reasonable rate because it excludes the vast majority of people who need legal aid. So the legal system is already rigged because of that, because lawyers are pricing themselves out of reach of the average person. So I questioned the defendant, and I demonstrated that the statements that he had made, he had nothing to use to prove that. And he had some things apparently on his phone, but what's on your phone is not admissible. So I was really not at my best mentally. I did the best that I could, given that I had already taken an anti-anxiety pill and was doing my best to keep my anxiety down. But it was just like a roller coaster for me emotionally. It was very, very difficult. And at the end, the judge said, I will give a ruling within the next 45 days. Yeah, it took probably double that time before I received the letter from the court, which is this, stating that I did willfully do that. I admitted to it, which I did not admit to willfully doing it. I did not admit to knowing who the owner was because, as I explained at the start, I had been told by the owner he was the owner. So I'm going to have to file a motion against this. But what really pissed me off, and I made a video about this years ago, is that when I started to talk in court, I told the judge I didn't know what I was doing because I'm not a lawyer, and he said ignorance of the law is no excuse, which judges love to throw at people as an, I don't know if they think that they're being funny or if they think they really are correct. But here's the thing. If you look at laws, a lot of laws are written in a way that it's difficult for the average person or even an above average person to understand. I mean, I have above average intelligence, but I struggle to understand the laws sometimes. It takes, and to expect an average or intelligence person or a below average intelligence person to understand the law, plus also understand how they're expected to behave in court and all the other relevant little things that go with being in court, is an unrealistic expectation of a judge. Now, let me give you another reason why. A judge doesn't start out as a judge. They start out as a lawyer. That means they go to law school for, I think it's like 6 or 7 years. Now, how many of us get any education in the actual laws of our state or our country, aside from like constitutional law and things like that, in a way that's actually going to prepare us for being in court? Almost nobody. Unless you specifically decide to take classes that are not required but address being in court and understanding state, federal, local laws, whatever, you're not going to be prepared for court. And to say that you should be prepared for court when you may not even be able to understand what's written because they use legalese, which is a deliberately obtuse type of English that is designed to confuse and frustrate people, is, in my opinion, an egregious breach of our rights as citizens. When the system is rigged against the average person who cannot afford a lawyer and thus benefits the rich, yeah, it's not right. And I wanted to say to the judge. I wanted to remind the judge how many years he spent in law school. I wanted to remind the judge how many years he was a lawyer before he became a judge, and that there are many people who struggle to understand the laws because they are not plainly written in a way that are meant for average citizens to understand, let alone below average citizens. But I couldn't, because if I did, he might cite me with contempt of court. He might find against me because I irritated him. I had no way to protect myself from the unjust reaction that might have occurred had I honestly expressed my opinion about his statement that there's no excuse for not knowing the law or how to behave in court. Especially given my mental health state, I couldn't take that risk. I almost melted down a few times while in there. It was very, very hard. So when I finally got this letter, I didn't know what to expect. Now, the one thing that I can say is before I walked out the door, I got up, grabbed my stuff, and I said to the judge, I said, thank you. And the judge responded, you're welcome, and he sounded surprised. I guess he doesn't get very many people saying thank you to him, which is a shame, because whether you agree with the judge or disagree with the judge, you should still, be respectful, at least of his time, if nothing else, his knowledge or her knowledge. As I was walking out, I did not hear the defendant or his lawyer say anything like that. So I don't know if they did after I walked out the door. But it was it was just surprising to me that he sounded so surprised that I said thank you. Anyways, so the defendant was demanding that I pay the legal fees and so on and so forth. And the defendant claimed in court, which I say is either his lie or the lie of the apartment manager, that I had not returned my keys in a timely manner when I returned them on the last day of my lease, that I had returned them like halfway through the next month, is what he claimed. He claimed that he did not have my address, my forwarding address, even though I filled out the form that I was given before I moved out. When the maintenance man asked me to fill it out so they would have the forwarding address, I filled it out and I gave it back to him, and he claimed there wasn't one. And additionally, there were other statements that he made in front of the judge that were factually false. But he couldn't disprove it. He couldn't prove it. I couldn't disprove it. And the judge really didn't care that he disparaged me, the defendant, that is. He accused me of wanting to be in court. I didn't want to be in court. I just wanted my $300 back. So I read this, and in this, the judge accused me of willfully and frivolously filing that claim in small claims, knowing that the defendant wasn't the owner. I didn't know that because the owner had told me he was the owner. So, however, he did say that he didn't feel that the lawyer had sufficiently proved the entirety of their claims, and so I didn't have to pay any of the legal fees, which is like $1,500, which is right now for me, I have to get new tires on the back of my car, and I barely have the money to do that. So that was a relief. But ironically, he did say I had to pay $300 to the defendant, which is ridiculous because he never tried to make that payment to me. He claims that he tried to send it to my old address at his building, but he had no proof of that. And I never received it, even though I had made my address change in a timely manner. It was never given to me by the USPS. And having worked for the USPS, seems kind of sus. So the point here is, number one, the judicial system is rigged against those of us who don't have money. It's rigged in terms of laws being written in an obscure way. It's rigged in terms of legal fees not being tenable. It's rigged in that legal aid offers very little help for most issues, if at all. And it's rigged because the judge insists you have to know the law, whether you actually have the mental and intellectual ability to do so. So you're welcome to comment back. If you're a judge, I would love to hear your argument. But, I do expect that whoever you are, you be civil and you contribute positively to the debate on this topic. Because if you don't, I'll either ignore you or I'll delete your comment or whatever, because I don't tolerate abuse. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.